Okay, now. So. Not too long ago, it was announced that the next Nintendo Switch would be on the way. So, I guess the question is, what is the next Nintendo Switch going to look like? Well, it's reasonable to assume very similar to the current model, with a few changes. As for the specifics, hard to say for sure, but there are rumors. Let's see, a SNES button, so a more powerful Tegra chip, the scaling, some HDR, more RAM, more storage, so, yeah, there are quite a few possibilities for the next Nintendo Switch. I might go over a few of the strongest rumors, but, well, I'm not trying to pick, but, well, you've heard all the rumors by now, probably. It's quite repetitive, tiresome, and cliche at this point to only focus on the rumors. So, I want to try a different angle. Instead, why not focus on, well, not just what it might be, but, well, most people are looking at trees. I want to take a look at the forest. So, I guess the question is, where to begin? Okay, so, what is for the Nintendo Switch? Well, given the fact that the technology in the current model is said to be almost a decade old, and given the technological advancements since the current model was invented, it's only reasonable to assume that the next system will be at least sort of more powerful. How much? That's not for me to say. But all that matters is it probably will be at least a little more powerful by an unknown amount. But again, that's not the focus of what I'm trying to say. I mean, other rumors? I mean, obviously, the idea that the next system could support 4K through DLSS upscaling, I mean, plausible. So, don't really see why it couldn't potentially happen. It's also worth noting that many first-party titles since Nintendo Switch Sports back in 2021, I think, or was it 2022? Anyway, since then, there have indeed been, there has been AMD FSR or something like that running under the hood. And apparently on PC, when you combine edge technology with NVIDIA's DLSS upscaling, they enhance each other rather than trip over each other. So it's reasonable to assume that there might be something to it. I mean, not to borrow too much information from the past, but Nintendo did regret not including HDMI on the original Nintendo Wii. So, so Nintendo probably would do 4K upscaling just to keep up with technology. Just to keep up with the current TV standards. Especially because, well, future-proofing for laws and such. Furthermore, well, again, I'll get into other details about that sort of thing soon enough. Now, what about the HDR? Hard to say, but again, that would be yeah, that's a bit outside of the scope, but I don't know. Again, could be for standards. Yeah, but yeah, I'm just retreading too many rumors at this point. I really should just move on to the point I'm trying to make. So, yeah. What was the point? Oh. Yeah. Regardless of what the next Nintendo Switch looks like, and how powerful it is, well, it's worth noting that, that despite the rumblings that may have been heard in the news, it's unlikely that we'll see, or that we'll have the next Nintendo Switch this year. Otherwise, I suppose we could potentially see it unveiled, but I doubt it. Again, it's worth noting that Nintendo said at sometime this fiscal year Yet everyone is acting as though they said calendar year. It's not this calendar year that we're going to see it released. It's unveiled in fiscal year, that was said. Meaning, it'll be after the fiscal year, perhaps, that we actually get the system. And we might not see it till sometime in March. With that said, regardless of when, we're still going to most likely see the current model have one last Christmas season all to itself. Then afterwards, the next Nintendo Switch. Furthermore, it's reasonable to assume that, well, it's worth knowing that with the Wii U, yes, it did pretty much have all first-party support dropped immediately upon launch of the Nintendo Switch. That's only because the Wii U was a financial liability. Whereas, it's worth noting that the 3DS was not. That it kept going until the end of the decade. Even then, there were some third-party studios that kept it alive a little longer, and indie games up until the very end. So, if the 3DS is anything to go by, then it's reasonable to assume that the current model will see support for a couple years into the life of the next Nintendo Switch. Yeah, I can see Nintendo supporting it up until up until at least 2027, and I can see third parties continuing to support it into the next decade, into the end of the decade, or until the end of the decade, and possibly into the beginning of the next one. Because sure, most of the new software is something that's getting hard. Getting more and more difficult to port to the hardware that's not necessarily on par with everything else. But there is the question of what about ports of old games? I very well could see ports of old games, of older games, continuing on the current model until, well, 2030 something. I mean, sure. I mean, there's only so many. There's only so many customers that would be able to. That would be. Well, I'm just saying. For smaller projects, for things that don't require that much power, historically, the third parties would continue to support the older hardware for, a bit for the titles that didn't need all that much power. I mean, see, the reason that PlayStation 2 games were still being made available for so long of course, then again, a lot of those were also being made for the Wii, so therefore, I mean, and that was at the time when the Wii were popular, so. But then again, and the Wii continued to see support up until 2019 as well. So yeah. And support should continue for at least a little while, depending on the size. Oh, I mean, depending on the size of the project. But as far as the next Nintendo Switch is concerned, as in the third-party software department, means there are many titles that are being expected for the next Nintendo Switch. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Star Wars Jedi series, Kingdom Hearts, Silent Hill 2, Assassin's Creed Mirage, and a few others, which I'll probably have posited in. Yeah. Again, we don't know how much power the next system will have. We can't really set our expectations too high. However, many have made the case that Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first one that is, could easily run on the current model. Meaning that even if the next system is only a little bit more powerful, it would still be able to run by default. Just because it would run on the regular model. The original. here. But does that mean that every third-party title every new third-party title will show up? No. Because unless the next Nintendo Switch is just that powerful, means there will be some titles that will still get left behind, most likely. I mean, I hear that City Skylines 2, so this is confirmed, I hear that City Skylines 2 struggles to run on even the best computers. I mean, the best, newest, and most powerful computers. At the PlayStation 5, on Series X probably would struggle to run into. Although I'm probably wrong. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Did I have some salt around here? No, not this. That way. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. But one point I should probably make, one aspect of my point that I'm going to make is this. I'm going to use a rather infamous example, which admittedly is beating a dead horse, but Cyberpunk. When it launched, it ran terribly on everything. Absolutely everything it ran terrible on. But a few thousand updates later, or a few thousand bug fixes, I should say, later, and about a year or two on those systems that were starting to get up there in age, it ran just fine. So, where am I going with this? Simple. It doesn't matter. And one thing that you should keep one thing that should be kept in mind is that yeah, it doesn't matter how powerful the system in question is. It will only have games running on it and running right if the developers aren't lazy. It'll only work. It will only get those games if the studios and developers put the right amount of time and effort into it. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how powerful or not the system is. It doesn't matter what power requirements the game needs. The game will only run right on the next Nintendo Switch if they don't screw it up. I mean, the developers. I mean, we've gotten plenty of games on the current Nintendo Switch that surprised people as to how well it was able to run. And by way of contrast, there were also quite a few titles that made people made people bang their heads against the desk as to how the studio managed to botch the game so badly. And of course, one example, Ark Survival Evolved, is a title that originally ran terribly on Nintendo Switch. And people thought that the Switch was just not powerful enough to run it. But a few years later, it was announced that they fired the team that they fired the studio that made that port and hired some other guys to do it, and actually got a good port of it. That just goes to show you the difference that effort will make. I enjoy this track. I'll have to try to cover it someday. Anyway. Yeah, I'm running out of time. So, should probably hurry up with what I'm gonna say. So, yeah. Plenty of titles could show up. But it just depends on how much effort the studios and rights holders want to put into it. Yeah. But what about backwards compatibility? I mean, I don't see why Nintendo would, why Nintendo wouldn't have it. I mean, yeah. I mean, the only reason why the Switch wasn't backwards compatible with its predecessor is the two systems were released on different formats. I mean, the disc wouldn't have fit into the Nintendo Switch, although I suppose they could have allowed for a disc drive add-on or something to allow it to work, but no cartridge, so grab a different one. So, yeah. I mean, another point I should make is that one detail with backwards compatibility is, oh, it goes with another thing I'm going to say. Many are saying that the next system will will have a digital only version, which hogwash, I have to say that, because unless because this is probably perfect for saying this, but unless the next Nintendo Switch is designed to work underwater, that's where the idea that the next Nintendo Switch won't support cartridges is just downright ridiculous. I mean, come on. Why wouldn't the next system have cartridges? The cartridge slot is very cheap to manufacture, or seemingly. By way of contrast, people ditch the disc. By way of contrast, the competitors ditch the disc drive because it's expensive to manufacture. There aren't as many people making the laser systems required for Blu-ray drives anymore. So therefore, just because the competitors are getting rid of a physical media format that Nintendo hasn't used in years, doesn't mean that Nintendo is just going to up and get rid of their proprietary format just because that's the direction that the competitors are going. No, in fact, that'd be another reason. In fact, because the competitors are ditching it, that's another reason to keep it. Because people all still want these. Therefore, it only makes sense that the next Nintendo Switch will continue to have the cartridge slot. It's affordable to make by comparison. It's more reliable long term, seemingly, than the disc drive. And there are just too many reasons and why physical media, at least for Nintendo, is here to stay. As far as backwards compatibility is concerned, sure, there would be quite a few studios that could benefit from re-releasing titles that did sell well on the current model, on the next model. But for every popular title that was fondly remembered, there's probably 3 good titles that not as many people remember, that didn't necessarily sell as well. So therefore, should the third-party studios be burdened by having to re-release everything? No. Especially when it seems as though Nintendo's plan is to have everything carry over to the next Switch and beyond. So therefore, not having backward compatibility would seemingly contradict previous statements by Nintendo. But if nothing else, Nintendo Switch Online is here to stay. Yeah. There's a lot I could say about Nintendo Switch Online's future, but that's another broadcast. Yeah. What was I gonna say next? Well, at this point, may as well wait. Yeah. So, one more thing I should say is, regardless of how powerful the next Nintendo Switch will be, what will we see of Nintendo's usage of the power? Because Nintendo did go on record, years ago, and say that 4K would not benefit the Legend of Zelda series all that much, but Pikmin could benefit from it. So, I guess how Nintendo will utilize the extra power of the next system will, I guess, in areas where I guess they'd probably appreciate the extra headroom as far as power is concerned. But as far as graphics are concerned, I mean, it would probably stay just the way it is. Maybe a little sharper here and there, but I mean, Nintendo's biggest franchises, such as Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up, but those don't need as much graphical. Those don't need the best graphical capabilities because of the graphical style. In some cases, likewise for intelligent system. So, I mean, Fire Emblem usually doesn't need to be too realistic. In fact, I think the past 5 games in the Fire Emblem series were more of a 2D style. But Monolith Soft and HAL Laboratory, that's an interesting case. Sure, both are stylized, but both have also shown areas where their extra graphical capabilities could be a benefit. So, and of course, well, though both retro and next level are wizards when it comes to graphical capability, for lack of a better term. I mean, I guess it's reasonable to assume that they would probably make good use of the extra power, but wouldn't necessarily rely on the extra power. As far as Game Freak is concerned, yeah, they'd definitely take the extra headroom for sure, given how rushed and lazy the construction of some of their more recent titles has been as of late. Otherwise, don't expect too much of a change as far as graphics is concerned in first-party titles. In conclusion, we don't really know what the next Nintendo Switch will be like. I mean, there are many leaks and rumors, but at this time, no one can truly say for sure what the future will hold. I mean, we'll probably see some third-party titles that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten, but don't expect all of them. We'll probably see some titles that would benefit from the extra power, but that doesn't mean that every studio will use the extra power wisely. I mean, Nintendo Nintendo will likely make a system that is a little more powerful and have a 4K output, but that doesn't mean that they'll make the most of it. I mean, probably hold back. In fact, many games will probably continue to not to be something that could happen with or without the extra power. Yeah. And I mean, hard copies of games will likely continue to be a thing because of the cartridge format as being affordable to include in every system. Again, unless it's supposed to be something that will work underwater. And of course, the market working a lot different, or just straight up working differently in other countries, meaning we can't entirely rely on the trends of the United States and Europe. Yeah. So, much that could be said about the next Nintendo Switch, but oh, one last thing I will quickly say. Sure, it's reasonable to assume that the popular series will continue on the next Nintendo system, but it's also reasonable to assume that we'll continue to see ports of past titles every once in a while. I mean, yeah, and that'll probably hold for both first party and third party. I mean, then again, just the back catalog of titles from the past 5 to 7 years would probably be enough to keep everyone busy for a while. But anyway, I'm late for something, and it should really hurry up and end this. Yeah. I think I've said everything. So, I guess the only thing left to say is, well, to take everything I say with a grain of salt. Yeah. I know. Absurd, but just had to do it. And that's all. Cat.